I believe this is episode 10. I hope I got that right, of ASMR Money Mentor. I'm so happy you're here. Hopefully you had a nice day. You're winding down. Most likely it's in the evening. I hope that you're relaxing. I know that for people that haven't been doing well with money over the years, like to sometimes, hopefully, think about money maybe before you go to bed. You know, you want to relax. You may be a financial train wreck like I was for so many years. There is a better way. There is such a better way. I still have my chamomile tea. By the way, this is one of my favorite mugs. I don't know what artist this is. Renoir, maybe. I'm not sure. But if you guys are having a hard time sleeping, like I did when I was broke at 40, which is what we're talking about this week, chamomile tea, something late at night, is good to maybe sip on as you're thinking about going to sleep. I know sometimes it's hard to sleep when you have money problems. And, you know, thinking back, before we continue on to this final episode this week, when I had my bankruptcy, I was up all night thinking about, you know, what a financial train wreck I was, and I was so ashamed. So I know that if I felt that way for many years, that you guys may be feeling that way as well. You found ASMR Monday Mentor, which, by the way, thank you so much for being here. And do me a favor, hit the like button right now. Go ahead, I know you want to. Just hit like. That'll spread this message with more people. I'm a new channel. You might be watching this in the future. I don't have many subscribers, but that's okay. I know that you're here, and that's what is so important to me. Real quick, I have another channel called The Frugal Millionaire. You can join me there. I show my face on that one now. I didn't before, but I do now. I also have a podcast called Broke at 40. You can find it on any podcasting platform where I ramble about money. So these are the three avenues that I have right now. And on this channel, I like ASMR so much. I like triggers. I like sound. I think it's very relaxing. I like visual triggers, like this light. I did this previously on an episode. I don't know if that worked very well, but I think light is pretty cool. Motion. I've been obsessed with ASMR for a long time. I think it's so important to relax. And, you know, triggers like this are so relaxing to me, so I hope they're relaxing for you as well. So, thriving on a modest income is what I've been talking about this week, right? You guys heard me in the previous episodes talk about the fact that I had a very modest income. For those of you that are new, go back and watch these episodes sequentially. You're going to see over time exactly what I did. And in 2006, I was making only about $40,000 per year. Very modest income. Till today, in 2024, I make approximately $120,000. Now, $120,000, I didn't mention this before, but that is what I call, obviously, income, which is a salary and a bonus that I get with my company. And I always count the bonus, obviously, in that equation, because I can't think of one year that my company did not give us a bonus. You know, that's the good news. I talked about this week also about how luck came into play with my journey towards financial independence, as far as having the job that gave me the income that I needed. Small little increments every year. That's so important that you guys have to do that. Small little increments, whether it's one company or multiple companies. But to build an engine, you need to have little bits of money every year, in addition to what you had the previous year. It doesn't have to be big incomes, it can be modest. I talked this week about wealth is relative. We'll talk more about the distribution phases, but when you're building your wealth, the accumulation phase, way, I find that over these past 15 or 18 years, I enjoyed building wealth, and I want you guys to enjoy building wealth as well. I know some of you are like, numbers, budgets, I hate it. But if you want success, especially as a late in life saver, if you started like I did when I was 40 years old, I'm here to tell you the only way you can do that is if you get your budget in order and you stay committed, like I've been talking about. And so in this episode, to continue on with thriving on a modest income, last time I talked about the basic building blocks, right? On Wednesday's episode, I think it was episode number 10. Now we're in episode number 11, and I want to talk again about the third really big building block that I had. So remember, what was number 1? The emergency fund. Now, by the way, I also want to add that an emergency fund has nothing to do directly with building wealth, because your emergency fund is not part of your wealth building toolkit. I'll talk about a wealth building toolkit in subsequent episodes, 401k being one of those. I like to refer to them as my fabulous 4. That'll be coming up. But as far as these basic building blocks, the emergency fund, it's not a wealth building tool. It's insurance. I want you to think of your emergency fund as insurance. So if you do lose your job, or if you have a big expense, and we all know this, but if you have a big expense like a roof that needs to be replaced, you're going to have this money earmarked in, hopefully, like right now in 2024, money markets are paying 4 to 5%. That is crazy. 4 to 5%. I have my emergency fund in a money market with my credit union, and it's a little above 5%, 5.12 until September of 2024. Then I'm going to move it probably back to Ally Bank, where I used to have all of my online savings. But I'm leveraging that opportunity with my credit union because they said if I put in my paychecks, which I do, I qualified for their short-term money market paying 5.12. Do you guys know how huge that is right now? And CDs as well, which I'll talk about. But again, an emergency fund is insurance, so don't think it as a building block to build wealth. This week, my last episode, I talked about my 401k. I want you guys to contribute up to the company match or more, but maybe not quite yet, because you also, if you qualify, the third basic building block, and really there's 2. The emergency fund was just like the insurance, but this one, for me, in 2006, I opened up a Roth IRA. Now, hopefully you guys know what a Roth IRA is, but if not, that's fine. Remember I told you back in 2006, I guess it was, yeah, when I was first learning all of this, as 2005, I said to a coworker, what is a CD? So I didn't even know. So I remember that. I also then didn't know what a Roth was, but in 2006, I was doing what? Watching the Susie Orman show. I learned about a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA just basically is funded, F-U-N-D-E-D, funded. You're putting in money into this Roth IRA with after-tax money. So money in your checking account. Which means as you put money into the Roth IRA with after-tax money, any of the gains over time, like let's say you're making a little bit more, maybe you put in $4,000 the first year, but maybe there's $1,000 of unrealized gains. When you go to take that money out of the Roth IRA, once you stop working, remember I hate the word retirement, so when you stop working, you can take out that additional $1,000 with no taxes on it whatsoever, right? So these are huge opportunities for can remember in 2006 opening up my Roth IRA with T. Rowe Price. I went to the website. I remember I opened up 3 mutual funds. Mutual funds are individual stocks in a fund. They're usually very well diversified. And I talked about this before, that it's not so much the mutual funds you put in your money into, is that you're putting the money into it that's so important, especially as a latent life saver. So talk to an advisor or somebody at these custodians and figure out what mutual funds to put your money into. Again, it's important to put as much as you can. So in 2006, I don't think I could max out my Roth IRA. It took another 2 to 3 years, but I put in exactly what I could, because what you're going to do is you're going to build your budget. I'll talk more about my budget in future episodes. You look at your in numbers, you look at your out numbers, and if you got your emergency fund, great. Now, what is it, 2 years later? You contribute to your 401k to the company match, great. Now, before you go and you max out your 401k to the total dollar amount, what I did, I went to the Roth IRA first, and in this year of 2006, I think I put in just $2,000 a year. Back in 2006, the max that you could contribute to the Roth IRA was, I don't know, maybe $3,000. It could have been $3,500. It doesn't really matter because I wasn't able to max it out anyway to the total dollar amount. But I did, I think, in 2007. So see how that works? When I talked about last time that these are sequential things that you need to know, and you need to do them in the year that you're in. So for you right now, if you can only do 3% to your 401k, but you have, let's say, $1,500 at the end of the year, and by the way, I mean in your budget, you would want to put that amount of money every year into your Roth IRA. So let's say, for example, you could put in $4,000. You know in your budget that you have this, after fun and other, that you can put into your investing, not savings. Savings is your emergency fund. But for investing, the Roth IRA, because you would be in a low-cost, broad-based mutual fund, and if it's $4,000, you just, of course, divide it by 12. And I remember for years I was putting in $333 every month. So when you build your budget, $333 every month. Dollar cost average into the market. We'll talk more about dollar cost averaging. That just means you're buying shares, whatever they're priced at, during the month that you purchase them. And if the market goes down, then you're still putting in $3,333, right? Well, you bought maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 more shares because they were priced lower than if they were priced higher. But it doesn't matter. You're going to continue to put in that $333 every single month. That's what I did. And then I was, of course, dollar cost averaging into the Roth IRA. Now, eventually, and I think this happened in 2007, I was able to max out my Roth IRA. So I said to myself, Evan, okay, maybe I was putting in $3,500, $400 a month, right? Whatever the max was in 2007, I think that's the year that I was able to put in the total dollar amount while still putting in the company match in my 401k. Does that make sense? Then I continued in 2008, which we'll talk about later, and 2007. Getting ahead of myself. But the thought process I'm trying to convey here is that you don't stop contributing to the Roth every year. You continue that. But then you get to a point where you're like, okay, I've got more money in my budget rather than just spending it like most people do. You say to yourself, where strategically could I put that money in the year that I'm in? And for me, it was to go back to then work on, which took 2 or 3 years, maxing out the total dollar amount into my 401k. So I hope that makes sense. So as you are building your engine that I would continue on this long journey, and it is a long journey. 15, 18 years is a long time. And I also, to conclude this episode, had to be okay with no immediate satisfaction whatsoever. I really want to end with that because it is so important. All of you have to commit and be consistent right now with every year going forward, and you have to be okay with having no immediate satisfaction. As you're building wealth, the reality is, if you have $100,000 in your investments, is really not that big of a deal when you think about the potential income that that $100,000 can produce. I want you to be thinking about the engine that you build is not the engine in and of itself. Like, let's say you get to $1 million like I did, right? I knew that I wanted to think about that $1 million as not the $1 million that it was that I built, but the income that that $1 million would generate without touching the principal of the million. Does that make sense? So as we talked about, most people say that you can take 4% off of your money and be okay. And as I talked about before, the principal is what you want to preserve. Not that we have to preserve the principal, because you have to think about your legacy too as you're building wealth, and we'll talk about that later. But as you go into not working, remember, I hate that word retirement, but if you start to distribute, I talked about that a few days ago, the accumulation phase, then you have a distribution phase. I'm still accumulating, you're still accumulating, but we'll get to a point where we want to distribute or take from those funds to live our life. And the smart way to think about it is, again, that you have the $1 million. Let's say it might not be for you, it could be more, it could be less, but let's just say $1 million. I could take $40,000 off of that and still have the $1 million. That's how I want you to think. Preservation of principle. But in reality, you may not need to do that, because who wants to die, let's say, at age 100 and have $3 million? If the market continues to go up and you're just taking $40,000 off of it, you could potentially then take a lot more than just the $40,000. Again, we'll talk more about distribution, but to wrap up this episode and this week's of episodes, again, for me, Evan Thomas, what I'm sharing with you guys is that I had a very modest income. Over these past 15 to 18 years, I wasn't making $300,000-$400,000. That's the key takeaway of this week's episodes. So, be thinking that you can build wealth, that again, wealth is relative to your expenses. You've got your basic building blocks, which I'll talk more about a little bit later. And then, what does it mean to be a latent lifesaver? It means that you have an opportunity to build wealth slowly. It's going to be faster than it was if you started at 25. You're going to have to put in more of your money into the investments and rely less on the unrealized gains. It's going to take more of your money putting in, and you need to commit to that for the long journey towards financial independence. So thank you guys for joining me this week. I'll see you next time.